Hello, I'm Blair Strempel, and this is my presentation for my micro-teaching lesson on multiple choice. So what is a multiple choice test or assessment? A multiple choice test is a question that consists of a problem and it has a list of possible solutions as answers. The solutions can include numbers, symbols, words, or phrases, and these are called alternatives. Now, what does a multiple choice question consist of? You have four things. You have STEM, alternatives, correct alternatives, and distractors. A STEM is a direct question or incomplete statement. An alternative is alternatives are a list of solutions, which would be words, numbers, symbols, or phrases. Correct alternatives would be the correct answer, and distractors would be incorrect answers, also known as foils or decoys. Our next question is, what are the different forms of multiple choice test questions? You have two different answers for this, or two options. You have a direct question or incomplete statement. An example of a direct question would be, which of the following is the capital of Louisiana? A, Baton Rouge, B, Lafayette, C, New Orleans, or D, Houston. So it has a full question and it's very direct, and the possible solutions, which are alternatives, are listed. An example of an incomplete statement would be, the capital of Louisiana is A, Baton Rouge, B, Lafayette, C, New Orleans, or D, Houston. So it's almost like you're filling in with the answer. Hence, incomplete. So our next question would be, what type of answers can be listed in multiple choice questions? So you can have the correct answer. So there can only be one answer that is correct, or you can have a best answer type. This would be something that's usually a little more difficult, and it's used to measure complex learning. So let's think of an example of best answer type. Which of the following factors contributed most to the selection of Baton Rouge as the capital of Louisiana? A, good climate, B, delicious food, C, good traffic, or D, it's on a river. So as you can see, there are several different answers that could technically, throw you off a little bit, because you could think, well, it has really delicious food, but would that work for a capital? Is that something that, they would designate a capital city for? And then you would realize that the best answer would be on a river. Now, how do multiple choice tests compare to other types of tests? Multiple choice tests are the most versatile test options that teachers can give students. Not only is the subject matter adaptable, but the complexity of questions is very flexible. These tests are able to provide complex learning outcomes. Because of the wide range of ability, many standardized tests use this format. The disadvantage of this format is that it lacks the ability to measure learning outcomes, require students to recall, organize, and present information. So that is one little downside. Now our next question is, what type of learning outcomes are possible with multiple choice tests? We can have knowledge of terminology, which is like particular items, vocabulary, that kind of thing. Knowledge of specific facts, who, what, when, and where. Knowledge of principles, which is principles of a subject, and knowledge of methods and procedures, which would be performance skills, communication, procedures, and problem solving. A test that asks for protocols before using science equipment in the lab or something like that. Our next question is, how do I construct a multiple choice test? You start with a STEM, then you have the STEM, which should have as much information about the subject as possible, but nothing irrelevant. Then we have number 3, only use a negative STEM if a significant learning outcome is required. Number 4, the alternatives should be consistent with the grammar of the STEM. Number 5, there should only be one clear and correct answer. So even sometimes we have some alternatives that are supposed to be decoys and throw them off a little bit, you still want to have that definitive answer that when you're going over the test or grading it will always be the correct and concise answer. Okay, then we have number 6, avoid using too much novelty with items, measuring understanding, because you don't want to confuse people too much. Number 7, distractors used as possible solutions should be possible and realistic. Then we have number 8, avoid providing hints in the STEM through verbal associations. So you don't want to give away the answer. Number 9, be aware of the alternatives' lengths so that they appear relatively equal. So if you have one really long answer with a long definition and all the other ones are really short, a student might say, oh, well, that's the definition. I don't really remember what it means, but I remember seeing it and it was long, so that's the right answer. So, you want to make sure they're relatively equal so they can all seem possible. Okay, so don't forget, multiple choice items consist of a problem and a correct solution in a group of items known as possible alternatives. The problem can either be an incomplete statement or a direct question, and multiple choice form is very flexible. It can provide a variety of learning outcomes. Like I said, I'm Blair Strumpel, and that was my presentation on multiple choice assessments.